Hello and welcome to the Inspiwords podcast. I'm your host, Mtobi Sindaba, and in this very first episode, I am bringing you a conversation with Mafule Moswane, who is a Ph.D. candidate at the Kansas State University in the USA. He's a 3 times Wits graduate. He is also the board chairperson of the Faculty of Best Advisory. He's a leader and a community builder. He's a friend of mine, and he's got a very inspiring story. Sit back and enjoy the conversation. Before we go any further, I'm going to ask you the question that you asked me. The last time we met, you said you don't ask people, how are you anymore?
Yes.
So how have you been, and how are you doing?
In a nutshell, I think the 3 fundamental questions.
Sure.
To really dig deep into a human being. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Mafule Moswane.
Molen.
Which means learn more.
Oh!
So
I didn't know that.
Yes, I'm a person in constant pursuit of learning, But if you ask me how I am, I would say I'm doing well. I'm experiencing peace that surpasses all understanding.
Wow.
I'm in a good space emotionally, spiritually, and otherwise, I'm well. And how have I been? I think to get here, I've also been okay. I've been working hard to be well, But of course, I've experienced fair share of challenges, dating back.
Can I check if this thing is recording?
Yes. Dating back to 2020, where I had a mental and emotional breakdown. But since then, I've been making progress. And how are things in general? So after that experience, I've been working hard to make progress. So I can say I'm making progress. Yeah.
No, that's good to hear. And it's very interesting to hear that you're saying you're making progress, because the reason why I'm doing this podcast is to speak about passion, to speak about purpose, to speak about progress.
Yes.
And we will get to that story, that
Absolutely.
mental health experience, because I think that's one of the things I'm most interested in,
Yes.
As you would remember in our previous conversation when we met, I told you I've been doing quite a lot of work around this issue of mental health, and we had a lot of commonalities, in our experiences as PhD candidates. But
Absolutely.
Before we get to that, we know you as one of these inspiring young men, from the time we were at Wits.
Yes.
I remember there was a time when we exchanged books. You're an author, you're a leader, you're all of these things.
Yes.
Where did it all start?
Oh, yeah. No, thank you so much, my brother. No, of course, I'm equally inspired by you. And for sure, the idea is that authors don't buy books.
Yes, exactly.
So when one author writes another book and I want to read it, I must make sure I'm writing another one.
Write another one, because you can't exchange with the old one.
Absolutely. But where does this thing all start? I think I could say from as early as high school, I think when I was at high school, there were a lot of experiences that changed my life, I've had people come into my school who were authors, who were coming to inspire us, who were doing a whole lot of great things. And I think having that privilege of people coming to your space and seeing that they look like you at times, they are black and they're doing great things and they are out there. It spoke to me and said that you too could be one of those people, because it's possible. So I started seeing myself not just being just a qualified individual with a certain degree or diploma program, which is very important. But for me, I think those people gave me a lot of options in life, that there's more out there and you could explore that too. So that's where it started, But I think even at high school, I was relatively an excellent student.
Relatively.
So what would happen is that at times I would be invited to higher grades. So, for example, if I'm in grade 11, they would say, come teach the grade 12
Yo.
on a certain topic. And I think that for me was a moment of awakening that there's something special about me. And I remember when I was in matric, there was also a teacher strike, as an example. What happened then was that I took on as a role as a leader. No one appointed me, but I was facilitating classes in the evening and classes during the day.
I see.
So that's when I started to lead without a position. I wasn't anything. If you ask Cayman, what are you? I wouldn't know what to do. I didn't even know I was a leader. Hey, I was none of those things. But I think the moment and opportunity created for things like that. And that's when I learned, because I had to tell people, no, come at this time, coordinate. Because I was the one having the privilege of intellectual prowess then, because they wanted me to teach them. And because I had to manage my time, I had to tell them when and how. So there was a time where I would, so the smart, or what you would deem top students, and this is a lack of language and expression. That's what people know. So the top students would be available during the day, and then the average students will then be available in the afternoon. So I'll have to cater for them, because generally I'm inclusive in my approach and democratic, because I love everyone depending where they are in life. So those who would wake up in the morning, I would be there for them, and those who would be available in the afternoon, I'll be there for them. And that's when I learned the value of hard work and service. It was in high school, and there was a crisis because the teachers were on a strike. So we couldn't just fold our arms and say our future.
When was this?
In 2010.
Oh, actually, were you doing grade 10?
12 then.
So you did grade 12 at the same time as
Yes,
myself.
yes.
Oh, interesting.
So that's when my leadership journey sort of like started without being appointed. It was a moment of a crisis. And then I intervened with the young people then. And the people who I was with then went on to date my friends, my colleagues in the work I do with different organizations at this point. Because a bond was created and we learned a lot about each other. The responsibility were on us. So that's sort of like how it sort of like started. And of course, family played a key role, and mentors. I think I've always had a lot of mentors around.
But describe for me the kind of context that you come from, because it is easy for someone who's hearing what you're saying to think that all of these things were happening because you were in a conducive context that cultivates leadership. You were in a school, Model C school. So tell me the kind of context in which you were doing those things.
No, thank you so much for that. So for me, I'm originally from a village called Tavampshera-Masemola. It's in Limpopo province.
I know.
Like, I think that question it's humbling, because where I come from to where I am, it's like a miracle.
Sure.
Because,
and I think it's an important thing for us to talk about that, because somebody from there might be looking at this, and it would create this whole idea that it is actually possible. And I think for me, that's one of the most important things I want to do with this platform. Let's expose that kind of context and show that it does not mean that when you are there, you are damned forever. There is a way out, and there are people that have done it.
So to that point, right, I grew up there, and I'm not from a very wealthy family, but I never went to bed hungry to date ever in my life. So I come from family of working class, So I never lacked, but I couldn't afford private school. So I went to government schools throughout my life. But fortunately, my parents were very strict. I always had to come home before sunset. Even now when I'm old, I still want to do that. They are not saying I should do that, but I'm saying, do you hear what I'm saying? Because it's a culture that I grew under.
It's built into you.
Yes, because I always say, no, at certain time I have to, even when I stay alone, I want that. So I grew up in that context of a village where, because I had to come home at certain times, I would be told to wash dishes. I'm told routine and discipline. And okay, you are not watching TV, a program like this, you're watching news. And then now it's time for you to stop watching TV. You are working on your books.
And
then they will ask me, what are the books saying? So I couldn't even lie to them because, I could. Because they knew how to read. So I was staying with my grandparents who knew how to read and write. So they could check, they could verify. So, and then if I'm not doing the right thing, they will then hold me accountable. So I had that context of family that is supportive and progressive in that view. But I grew up also in a village where, fear could be installed in you. So because I was
installed,
because I would do so well at school, right? Because I had time to study, right, and be ahead. So in most instances, I would get 100% in tests all round in every subject. Then people will say, "When you are going to be bewitched." Because you are so smart people get bewitched.
Have you ever been bewitched?
No. I don't know what witchcraft is. Right? But I had fear of bewitched, because being bewitched, right? So in that context, so it was not really possible if you were thinking about it for one person who's being told that if you do well, you're going to be bewitched. So I ended up even resorting to being average because I had fears. Because I was always reminded, they will bewitch you. You won't end up anywhere because smart people don't make it in this context of rural areas. They get bewitched.
But now you've made it. You've been all over the world.
No witchcraft formed against you shall prosper. Right?
Interesting. I want to go back to one of the things you said. You spoke about how you grew up in a family that, sort of created discipline for you.
Yes.
They were disciplining you. You were told to wash dishes. You were told you can watch TV at this time. Did you at the time think that was something valuable?
No. It was not nice because when people were having fun, being all over the place, jollering, especially at a certain age of adolescence. They would meet their boyfriends and girlfriends and they talk about those experiences.
And then you're busy with books there.
And then you feel out. It's like you're not relevant, And they also, people will have fun, go to taverns and dance and they share those experiences and you are just there subwalling, wishing. So you are like, hey, I wish I just had that, But also, those things, there were a lot of things that I missed, but I'm happy now that I didn't get to do those things, right? But at the time, at that moment when I was still young, I wished that I had, or they will talk about what happened on a certain program. And me, I'm not watching it.
Not watching.
So it's like I'm the boring person in the world. This one, he knows the things in the book.
Bruh. But again, I think those are the things that have brought you to where you are today, and they've contributed to the person that you have become.
Yes.
And I want us to now move on to the journey of going to varsity. I remember when we met last time, you really narrated the story of how for you it was just about going to Wits.
Yes.
Tell me about that story, that journey of going to varsity.
Yes. So my maternal grandfather worked at Wits before I was born, and I found him. He's still working at Wits. Until I left. We left Wits almost at the same time in 2018. So the reason why I said I wanted to go to Wits is because he was working there, and it was the only university, at least then when I was growing up, I knew about. Because someone, he didn't work as a professor, he worked like a working class job, in the residences. But I knew Wits because of him, because they would say he works at Wits and there would be things from Wits in the home. So I didn't even think of, I thought, when you move from primary, you go to a secondary. Then I'm like, okay, then if I finish secondary, I'm going to it's the other school after high school.
That's the part that finished me.
I didn't know it is this complex institution that is difficult to enter. But fortunately, there was foundation that would enable me to enter the Ivory Tower, or one of, at the time when I entered, it was the top institution in Africa. So I was like, so grateful to make it to Wits, where I think I lived by far one of the best times of my life, But I believe the best times lie ahead. But I think even at Wits, I don't even regret a thing, because I was at Wits and I lived. I didn't hold back.
So how would you describe your experience at Wits?
So the experience was both, exciting and also full of challenges. I think the first year experience was a challenge, because you would experience cultural shock,
Yeah.
Now you realize you are poor.
You did not know all along.
I didn't know. No, I didn't even think I'm poor.
Sure.
Honestly, because of where I come from, do you hear what I'm saying? I
The
could
whole
afford
thing,
bread.
I think that experience, that shock, you finding out I'm poor. When you have to apply for this NSFAS thing at the time, you have to sort of prove your poverty.
But not only even the applications thingy, because fortunately I got even a bursary to get there as a top student, right? But the mere fact that someone in first year is driving your dream car. So how does it work? Like,
Sure.
do you hear what I'm saying? And also now when you start to give answers, right? Because you were taught English in spade in your high school, right? And physical science in isiZulu. So now when you try to speak, your accent is not there. And people laugh and they giggle, and then it deals with your confidence, And you start asking yourself, like, where am I? Because you were at least at a space that, like me, I was a top student. I was celebrated. Now I am nothing. You hear what I'm saying? And then you also are scared to ask the lectures because of how you speak, So there are a lot of things that make you feel like I'm not supposed to be here, or this is not my place,
Sure.
And
how do you get over that?
Yes, I think for me, I was fortunate because I ask questions time and again from different people, So I started to ask people, like, how do we win at Wits? Like, for me, getting a Wits degree was all I wanted. I wanted, because I also had to prove to the skeptics and the critics who said
You'll be
bewitched. I need to show them that my God is a strategic God. And he will deliver me to victory. So I needed, but also to say, if I do it, everyone else that follows after me will make it. Do you hear what I'm saying? So I am creating a pathway. So I'm creating a formula, because many people have said you Wits chows. Like immediately you enter there's this thing of Wits chows. That thing we chowed. Me, I chowed it 3 times. Back to back in a row. 3 degrees under my belt from Wits University. And even made those things of golden kin don, right? So then anyone else who looks like me, who comes from the same place, they have proof of concept that Mafule made it, even though he came from the same material conditions like us, even though the institution was always reminding me, him in its culture and ways of doing things, that you are not belonging here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So that's what for me sort of like makes me feel so good about my experience then at Wits, and I loved it, and I think a lot of things came out of that experience. I could tell stories.
Yeah.
I could write books. That experience even led to me and some of my friends from where I come from to start an organization so that young people won't go through what I went through and what many other people across the spectrum of higher education, particularly from black communities and or poor working class conditions, experience in institutions of higher learning.
Yeah. Yo, it's interesting that when you tell this story, you start saying no, you were afraid to ask questions, but at the end, you have 3 degrees from the same university. You made it to things like Golden Key, which are very prestigious, spaces. And
Yes.
I think I want to congratulate you for that. And as you say, it's proof that regardless of where you come from, there is a way to get to those kinds of spaces.
Absolutely.
And now talk to me about your move from Wits, because when you left Wits, you were starting a PhD, and we're all very excited about you. And I think it was a very, what do I call it? It was a pivotal moment in your journey as a person, as a leader. It was a pivotal moment in your academic journey as well. And it was an exciting moment. We're all excited for you. Talk to me about the move to the US.
Yes, definitely.
How did it come about? And
I think when I was accepted for a PhD in leadership communication at Kansas State University, that alone,
yeah,
I don't know even how to express that thing in words. Because when I was finding out that no, I'm not only just going to be studying,
yeah.
but I'll also be teaching
Wow.
in America.
Sure.
I'll be involved in mentoring people
From Limpopo to teaching in America.
right? Even when I was dreaming, I never dreamt outside of South Africa. So now you hear what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And then I'm even going to be doing research and involved in a whole lot of other things outside of Africa. Not only outside of South Africa, but outside of the continent of Africa. For me, that was an achievement that, anything is possible in this world. So that alone for me was like, I've achieved my ancestors' wildest dreams. A black human being is going to teach people across the world, because at Kansas State University, where I started between 2019 and 2020, the teaching role. Sure. I taught between 2019 and 2020 before I experienced a mental breakdown. I was lecturing Introduction to Leadership Studies, Leadership 101 in a nutshell.
So you've been into this thing of leadership.
So my work in FBA catapulted me to teach about leadership across the world. And for me, I was producing magic. So if you were in my class, you were going to tell other people to enroll for it. That's what students in America were doing. And I think having to do that at the global level, I wished it was like this. I wish people could watch. I wish people could listen and experience it, because it was magical. It was as if I was born and they said, Wena, you are going to teach people in this class.
Yeah.
It was like something I was made for. So that experience was so good, right? It had its own challenges. I'm still registered for PhD with Kansas State University.
Yeah.
But because of some of the challenges that I encountered, I had to come home and be here. I had experienced a mental and an emotional breakdown in 2020, which forced me to take a break from everything to heal, because I couldn't do anything then. So that's what led me to come home and ask myself, where to from here, because of what went on in my life.
Before we get to coming home, we're still going to the US.
Yes.
I want to know, and it's great you are talking about the great experience of being accepted into a space like that and teaching in a space like that and all the incredible magic that you were doing there, then what happened?
So I made history, So I'm a history maker and I write history and I envision the future. But I think getting into that program, the Ph.D. program,
Sure.
so I became, at least in that school I was at, the Staley School of Leadership Studies of Kansas State University, I became the first ever African to teach
Sure.
in the Staley School of Leadership of the first operational land-grant university of American people. There has never been any African who held that role that I was in America. So you could, being the first and the only, I mean, it's a very complex space to find yourself because you're breaking the glass ceiling. You don't know who to ask questions because you are the first in that space and context. I'm looking for someone who has had that kind of experience, even at a different location, to say, how was it? Because for me, I had to experience it myself, and there was no one to ask questions, at least at that level that my life was unfolding.
Sure.
The people I know went to abroad to study.
Yeah.
They were not
Teaching.
in authority role of teaching. Do you hear what I'm saying? So me, I had to now navigate something that I wasn't familiar with, right?
Yeah.
But I experienced that transition because it also stretched me because I had to learn so much at a short space of time and grapple with a whole lot of things, being a student full-time, a lecturer full-time, and an advisor full-time. So, and I think even the culture of America, it's something else. They work hard.
Very competitive.
And I had time and space also to push myself.
Sure.
And I experienced accelerated growth in a short space of time. I was stretched and it was time.
Yeah.
So I became like an intellectual monster at that period. I could realize, but I also realized how great Wits University is because it prepared me.
It prepared
when I was
you
there,
for that, yeah.
I was dealing with people intellectually in spaces that allow. Do you hear what I'm saying? In where we had to debate.
Sure.
I will rip people apart.
Yeah.
And some were even older than my parents. And I think that's where most problems started because I also have a spirit of activism in me.
Sure.
So I even found myself in a very wide dominated space.
Yeah.
That is not open for change, right? And for me, I wanted change. When I was in South Africa, even now, change is what I want to see.
And you left at a time where I think universities were very much politicized.
Yes.
During the time of the Fizz Must Fall, and I think a lot of spirit of activism was imparted during that time. And I can imagine what it was like for you getting there in 2018, and being in a space like that.
Yes, I mean, so all those ideas of throughout my Wits time, I've always found myself in. My degree is geography, archaeology, and environmental sciences, which is like science. But I found myself in spaces of humanities, like politics. Scientists don't normally see themselves as people who participate in politics and or other social or human-related things. They want to be in the labs. That's
wearing white coats.
Yes, things that I didn't. I grew into those things because I also said I want to influence society in some shape or form. So by virtue of being there, I started to learn politics. I started to learn consciousness, ideas of black consciousness.
Sure.
I started to be influenced by Paulo Freire, Steve Biko, Robert Mangaliso, Sobukwe, Kamben Nkrumah, Thomas Sankara. I started to breathe these ideas and they started to shape my ways of being and thinking, right?
Sure.
And then once you cross that bridge, I think there's no going back. Like do you hear what I'm saying?
Gone.
It's you know what injustice is, and you don't want to sit on the side when in the face of injustice. But much more so, especially if you could also find yourself in the receiving end of that injustice.
Sure.
So that's why even today I do the kind of work that I do, engaging young people and ensuring that they get access to higher education and succeed there and eventually break the cycle of poverty and fight inequalities. It's because of that. So that is who I am. You know, I find myself as an activist and I'm not regretting. I will do everything humanly possible to be who I am.
Sure.
And it comes with costs.
Yeah.
It comes with costs of being an engaged human being. In the US, one of the things we used to identify ourselves in the academies, we are publicly engaged scholars. So our work is not just to sit in files.
Sure.
It must find traction in the ground. It must influence the ground and the ground must influence it.
Sure.
Do you hear what I'm saying?
Sure.
So for me, even when I'm in the class, when we're speaking about ideas of decolonization, in America, I will speak my language. Kirna tuto yaka iswanje ifetule batho ba ga masemola.
Yeah. Sure.
Do you hear? And I was doing that in America, and people would be electrocuted shock. Because, like, what madness is this?
Sure.
Because I will then tell them that one of the influencers, Ngungu Wationgo, who writes the book Decolonizing the Mind, says language is the carrier of culture. So by speaking in English, you and I here advancing the colonial culture.
Sure.
But by the time we get to Rebulele Malemi ya Borena, like our languages, ke bolele Sepedi, o bolele Suzulu, ola bolele Chivenda, Arimuranga, Panda, Waduba, Naduba, Wazino, Namachero. We are enriching and advancing our languages.
Yeah.
And that, so me, I am a pragmatic genius. So when I give you an example, you must hear it or see it.
Sure.
So I was doing, and they're like, but you can't speak these things in America. You must do these things. And I'm like, no, this is who I am. So you are saying, by virtue of being, I must completely reject myself for who I am.
Sure.
So it was very exciting. And then so these ideas then started to make me be an enemy of some people who were not receptive to ideas of change, you know.
Yeah.
And some people would say, when I'm Mafule, you are blurring the lines between an activist and a researcher and you do hear what I'm saying?
But those lines have always been blurry, you know, in so many ways.
Yes, they were saying like, you are taking it too far. How can you speak your home language even in an American university?
Sure.
I'm like, where does it stop and where does it end? Like, who gives that mandate to say you don't get to do it at this level here? Do you hear what I'm saying?
Sure.
And for me, I'm glad that my children will know that I fought for something, I stood for something, and I did it at the most unimaginable place in the world, you know.
Yeah.
And my dream is one day to write books in my language of Ph.D.
Sure.
to teach leadership in my home language and other languages
And I know you will
of
do
South
it.
Africa.
I know you will do it. So tell me now.
Yes.
Because you are in this space and there is all of these, you are starting to become the enemy to some of these people here.
Yes.
Because you are pushing these ideas of change and transformation. What then triggered the mental breakdown?
Yes. So remember that in
Please remember your mic.
Definitely. So remember that so when you do PhD in America, it's not just research, you attend classes.
Sure.
So these are happening. I'm taking a lot of classes in leadership department and communication department and many other departments. And some departments were not progressive and open to change. So you'll find that people in some departments are very racist, you know. I mean, racist should be called racist. We shouldn't sugarcoat, right?
Yeah.
So they will be very racist towards me, you know, and especially most of the time being the only a
Black
black
person, yeah.
in the class, and you are easy target, right? So you will be reminded that you are not an American.
Sure.
You will be asked, when are you going back home, and you'll be told that you are not supposed to say those things here, that you are saying, the ideas you are advocating for,
Yeah.
It was just, I think the thinking was that you will just come and take whatever that is being presented to you and accept
Go
as truth.
and be grateful.
And be grateful, and not see yourself as a participant, as a contributor to knowledge creation and production in the space that you occupy at that very moment. Because the production of knowledge is not only at the very end of a publication of a book it's
In
the
the
conversation
process,
and the
yes.
process, right? Then I imagined myself like that, and I lived like that. So I didn't hold back. But I think I was on the receiving end of racism in conversations. I would be shut down, and at times superiors, like lecturers, wouldn't even protect me in some instances, Yeah. So it was. So I was experiencing that a lot of times. When you take punches, it builds up. So
Yeah.
pain and trauma builds up, right? But I think the turning point was when I was also attending protests like Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
But the turning point came when I was at my apartment just back from running, and a white woman and a white man came.
Sure.
And then they said to me, "Hey, you black man, you you must live here. We don't want you anymore here." Do you hear what I'm saying? But people, it was a threat, right? But
Yeah.
what does a threat mean, and what does it do? It shocks you. It threatens you. That's what it is, right? And if you analyze things like me, you are a researcher.
Yeah.
You're asking yourself, what could be the next thing?
Yeah.
So me, when I was oriented into teaching in America, the first thing we had to do was, like, if someone with a gun comes in the class, this is what people should behave. I'm like, why are you talking about guns now? Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
like, no. Here, people shoot people. Do you hear what I'm saying? And they can do it even in the classroom.
Yeah.
So I was shocked then, right? But I wasn't too shocked. As I had that experience. And a lot of shooting happened even before Black Lives Matter and at the. So I would learn that no, shooting happens here. So when that moment happened, I was like, hey, this is a place.
Could be short. Pela.
Yes, so that's what I'm like. I'm not being shot now. I didn't even answer them. I was like this.
Sure.
I didn't say anything because I didn't know if I respond, it would lead them to act
Yeah.
in a. Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I don't know how angry being black made them, or them knowing, because at the campus I was involved and talking a lot.
Sure.
So I don't know how angry they were about me being there and what I'm doing and who sent them. Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Then I remained silent, and fortunately they left. But I think that was a very difficult moment, right? It happened then, but it had ripple effect. Because after that, I couldn't sleep anymore.
Yeah.
Because they knew where I stay.
Sure.
And it's America. So if it was here in South Africa, I would run away from Gauteng to Limpopo. So
Yeah.
there I don't know anyone. Where do I run to? Do you hear what I'm saying? So I couldn't sleep. The anxiety levels rose, and then I spent couple of days. I don't even remember very well, but a lot of days. And I think I was scared, too scared. And
I think anyone would be scared.
yes, and I'm like, I'm alone here, and sometimes I want to reach out to people at home. They are sleeping.
Hey, the time difference is huge.
It's evening. So now, and it was tough, right?
Yo,
and then
I can imagine.
so it was very, and then eventually I had like a breakdown, and I think I still haven't figured out how those things happen.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know. I'm not an expert in the field of mental health,
Sure.
but I think I'm grateful that the experience happened, right? And I'm here now. It's victory.
Before we get here,
Yes.
when you realized when the breakdown happened, what did you do?
So when the breakdown happened,
Yeah. How did you get out of that to the point that you could be able to function again? And
so when I was in America, I was still in a breakdown. I was just all over the place. I wasn't myself anymore. I was, and I'm a writer, so I was writing many things on WhatsApp.
yeah,
Things that were not coordinated.
Yeah.
That shows this person needs help and intervention. And then
did anyone come to your rescue? Did
people
anyone
picked
intervene?
that up. Yes, then they started to ask my friends and family, right? Then they're like, no, this is not leadership, we know. Then there is like, where are your colleagues? I gave them my numbers, then they could engage the colleagues to say, hey, Mafule is not well, can you go to him? And then they came, and then I was taken to a crisis center.
Yeah.
I couldn't be accepted in that crisis center.
Sure,
Because
why?
They were asking me, where are you from? I was saying I'm from Azania, located south of Africa.
Yo.
Do you hear what? Because I think then, although I wasn't okay, but I believed that the ideas I was fighting for, now I was fighting for to the death.
Yeah.
Do you hear what I'm saying?
I see.
I was at that space, and then they're like, you can't fill Azania on the form. We don't know that. Then I had to be taken back where I was, and I was still not in a good condition.
Yeah.
And then the following day, I was taken back to the crisis center. I was accepted. Admitted there for a week or two. And then the doctors made assessments there, the health professionals. And they're like, you can't work for, that was, I think, in July, August 2020. You can't work until January of 2021.
Yo.
That was like a shock. You can't
6
work.
months.
Hey, I'm like, so what's going to happen? But I think by that time I was like, I already want to go home.
Yeah.
Like I want to go home. And at the institution, they're like, if you go home, you're going to lose your assistantship because it says you have to be in America to do these things here. I'm like, but I think I was also scared just to live in the community because I didn't know when will the people come, I couldn't go anywhere alone then. Like, even like, I was scared to even sit on a tree where there's no one because I didn't know if the people will be coming
watching
for
you
me.
there.
Yes. So it was a horror movie.
Sure. I can imagine.
Yes. Then
I can
we made. I came home. We had to find a way for me to come home, and then I came home. And coming home, home. There's no place like home.
Yeah.
I think this is where.
Before we get to the coming home, there's this one thing that I always push, especially after I released the Jumpstart Effect, the whole idea of why human connections matter.
Yes.
The whole idea of relationships and how those kinds of experiences of stuckness remind you the value of relationships. Who are some of the people that you reached out to at the time and they came through for you and they reminded you of the value of the relationships you had and you have with them at that time?
In one of my classes, I was teaching leadership is a relationship.
Sure.
And the currency of relationship, the currency of the relationship is the conversations.
Sure.
And the value is love when one receives and experiences love, right? For me, it has always been like that, even prior for me going abroad. But I think I forgot to mention that all these things were happening at the time of COVID-19.
Sure.
Which means that I didn't even have many human interactions. Some of these things happened before COVID, but they happened during the online classes.
Yeah.
And they went on. But because you could move around without being in contact, so some of the racist remarks, I could run, right?
Yeah.
And then coming from running, that's when I had that encounter with the two people who made my life to go through something unimaginable. And so I was speaking to my friends, my colleagues in FBA, and my mentors. At the time I was engaging and interacting a lot with people like Prof. Parking, who was checking in on me almost every month, check in to say how are things are going, and also people like Njabulo Ndebele. A lot of people, in fact, were engaging with me time and again.
Yeah.
But obviously, we always had to set appointments because of the time zones, right?
Yeah.
Which was tricky. But my friends, I think at the time of COVID, I wasn't the only one going through challenges. Even people at home in South Africa were going through their own fair share of challenges. So some of the people I couldn't get hold to. And the other issue was that, my mom was someone, mother's love is so beautiful. She's located in Limpopo. So network there, it's an issue.
Ish.
Right, and direct calls are also expensive when you are internet. So you couldn't get that mother love, or you can just say, I'm going to see my parents at home, because you have to, when you come home, the flight is equivalent of a lobola price. So I'm like, instead of going home, let me fundraise to get a wife. So when you are in America, you can't just say, I'm going home.
It's not like a taxi fare.
No. It's very difficult, right? So I was like, no, I can't just go home. I must use this money to find a wife.
Yeah.
So put it aside. That was the plan, that it would be very helpful. And then I'll go home when the time is right with money to say, now, family, I have resources.
Yes.
Let's find someone who will live happily ever after. So that was the thinking.
I see.
Yes.
And at the time, was there a special lady that could have been potentially? You don't have to say any names.
No, of course. No, we were led. We were dating a very loving, amazing human being at the time. It's just unfortunate that when I had the breakdown, she broke up with me. So, but I don't blame her, because I don't know, right?
Yeah.
It was just that our paths had to potentially come to an end. So it was tough. Imagine you experience a mental breakdown,
And that's when you need people the most, man.
yes, and then mental breakdown and emotional breakdown, and then a breakup.
And all of these things are piling up together.
So now I'm like, Andy, what did I do to deserve
why
this?
me?
So and it was someone who was thinking, here, I'm getting married.
Future is-
That's the person I was saving the resources to,
Ish.
But those resources helped me to afford tea and coffee with people who were willing to meet up with me in the healing journey.
Let's talk about the healing journey. You come back home and you start the healing process. What did that entail? What did the healing entail?
First, I was admitted in a hospital.
When you came back here?
Yes.
Okay.
Not immediately, but after the family realized I'm not getting better, and I'm not I was traumatized.
Sure.
So I was scared. Even at home, I was still scared. I was living in fear. And imagine this thing happened in America, but I was still. Do you hear what I'm saying? So there was trauma.
Yeah.
I was a mess. I was a mess. And so I had to be admitted in hospital, and then, the healthcare professionals helped. Fortunately, at the hospital I was at, we would sing, we would pray, that I think that's where even my spiritual journey became revived, because I was, in deep challenges.
Yeah.
And then, so after assessments were done, and it was seen that I could go and be with family and support structure that went on. And the second part was, I think, being around a family where I couldn't be seen by almost everyone, and where I would be in a sacred place.
Yeah.
So, I couldn't be with my father because he's a mechanic. Every time people knock, my car is not feeling well. It's mixing oil and water. So people come. It's not sacred.
Yeah.
It's homely, but for someone who I was in my situation,
And whenever somebody knock, you would be.
I don't want to talk
Is it
to
the
people
people? Yeah.
anymore. I want to be alone and be healed, right?
Sure.
So I could then be with that family. God bless them. You will know about them. I should have prepared them that I would be here and mention.
Yeah.
But they are very loving family, spiritual mentors to me, even to date. And hopefully, I pray for the rest of my life that they still become kind and gracious to me in my journey. And I think that's where I was also had sessions, spiritual sessions. So I was attending therapy.
Yeah.
But beyond the therapy, I would have spiritual engagements on a set
How would you
time.
describe the spiritual engagements?
So we would start by saying these questions of how are you?
Yeah.
How is everything generally? We'll ask the fundamental questions and then we'll say what you want to talk about at the moment. Do you want to talk or not? If I want to, I share.
Sure.
Very therapeutic because I was carrying a heavy load on my shoulders.
Yeah.
I had to release, and they created space for that. And then we'll discuss scriptures
Sure.
related and relevant to some of the things that were coming, because they've been in the spiritual journey for long, so they could find which scriptures are relevant and right. And but there was also a book that it's foundational to this, to those who maybe their spiritual journey is shaken.
What book is that?
It's 1-to-1, so it's a discipleship book. It grooms the disciples.
Sure.
I went through that book. It's not long, it's very short, but it asks questions and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
I think that fundamentally changed me, right? Because I was very angry also. I wanted to hit people with my fists. I was like, I'm going to regain my strength and go back and fight again.
Yo.
Right, because I was like, these people are messing up my future. Like,
Yeah.
why?
Did it really get messed up when you think about it now?
No. I'm like, come on. Now I've achieved my dreams.
Yeah.
Not, I've went above and beyond achieving my dreams. Like the dreams that I had set for myself, I went above them, right? And what is left right now, right, is I'm dreaming anew, and I'm prepared to make other people's dreams come true.
Let's get to that. One of the things that I want to do in this podcast is to help people give their dreams a chance.
Yes.
So what does that statement mean to you, to say give your dreams a chance?
Give your dreams a chance. I'll give an example. So I'm 30. So right now,
Young, bro.
so I turned 30 this year, and by 30, my dream was that I'll be Dr.
Yeah.
Mafule Moswane, so that if my girlfriend introduces me, they are like, my partner, Dr. Mafule, who will soon be marrying me. So I was thinking around this time I would be Dr. Mafule and getting married, or in the process of, right? That was my vision board that I had. You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That was my dream at this age, at this time, by 2022. So, with the then breakdown, it meant that I'm delayed. I am, but success delayed is not success denied.
Yeah.
it just means it is not now, right? But it will happen. So I think that's what give your dreams a chance says. Like, for me, it even says, I am redirecting you.
Sure.
Do you hear what I'm saying?
Sure.
That you will turn your mess into a message.
Sure.
Your trials and tribulations will be a testimony.
Sure.
Do you hear what I'm saying?
That's like you're giving the testimony now.
Right. And your story will heal the hearts and the souls of many people out there. Because at least Mafule Moswane has the courage to say he had a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
And he believes that no mental breakdown formed against you shall prosper. That there's a possibility of healing, of restoration and recovery and rejuvenation and revival. So I don't know if you watched Dragon Ball Z when you were young. I don't know if you watched.
We didn't have a TV at
Yeah.
home. Are you
So
exposing me now?
No. It's no issue. No, I'm just giving an example. It's not important. But there used to be this thing called they are transforming or someone becomes Super Saiyan. They become to the next level. So I feel like that. I feel edified, amplified, rejuvenated, revived, repurposed, and refurbished.
Yeah.
Do you hear? My life has much more value and meaning. I'm not just, for example, an academic who just speak from what they've read.
Yeah.
Do you hear what I'm saying?
Sure.
I have experience that you can't buy. You have to have.
Yeah.
You have to go. You have to go. I've went through the fire and ice. Do you know what? I have went through it all, the great moments and the difficult moments, the ups and downs, right? That experience gave me more years to my life.
Sure.
That I haven't yet lived. I've experienced a lifetime in a space of a year.
Sure.
With what I've went through, right?
Yeah.
And when I was going through it, I was saying, why me? But I think I read my book again, and it says, do not look back and ask why, but rather look ahead and ask, why not?
Sure.
So I'm looking ahead and say, why not? It had to be me because I have the courage to speak. Many people go through certain things and they will never speak about them.
Sure.
But me, because I can undress and be bare and be vulnerable.
Yeah.
It had to be me. It had to be someone who's willing to write and tell stories of African people. Because in the black community, mental health is a taboo. Right?
Yeah.
Here I am as a black person in America.
Not
they will
only
say,
a black person, black man.
yes, black men. Even they say a man must not cry. Me, I cried to heal.
Sure.
And men must cry.
Yeah.
They must cry. If they have their wives, they must say, baby, I'm crying. If they have friends, they should say, my friend, I'm crying. My friends never gave up on me, fortunately.
Sure.
My leaders in FPA, some of the people I've met believed in me, and my mentors, they will pray with me, and for me, they will say, you are healed in the name of Jesus.
Yeah.
And you will rise again. And God is molding and shaping your character. You will reclaim your position in the world, right? Do you hear what I'm saying? And
you have risen and you are rising. Even
you think?
higher. No, bro, like for me, it's just an amazing thing to see the person that you have become. Since you've come back, you are doing great and amazing things. And I'm wondering, what is it looking forward? You were speaking just now about repurposing, redirection. So what is it that is next for you? What is coming for you? Where are you going? What's cooking? What's happening?
The story is still unfolding. The best is yet to come. And the best pages of our lives are yet to be written. After all, the best, the best days of our lives lie ahead.
Yeah.
I've learned in the recent past, with everything I've been through, not to restrict myself to people,
Sure.
because they will break up with you.
Have you healed from the breakup?
Yeah, I've healed. And I dream of being a husband. So
Yes.
people can send their CVs.
Yeah, no, but I'll vet them first before.
It's critical. Among other things, right? I've healed. But I also have learned that you should not restrict yourself to institutions. Do you hear what I'm saying? So now, this is what's coming next. I'm going to lead. And I'm going to lead so well.
Sure.
I'm going to lead everywhere. I'm going to go to places which people have never been before. I'm going to teach. In America, I was teaching in the classroom only. I'm going to teach everywhere. I'm going to teach at churches. I'm going to teach at schools. I'm going to teach at universities. I'm going to teach young and old.
Yeah.
I'm not going to hold back.
Yeah.
I have a second chance to life.
Sure.
Many never get it. So this moment of my life calls for me to live the best life possible,
Sure.
I'm going to write. I'm going to write every day to heal the hearts, the souls, and the minds of people, because that's my purpose. I found my purpose, which is to lead, to teach, to write, to think. I'm going to imagine. I want to be part of the people who imagine the culture of Azania, who challenge the status quo, who rewrite the history of our people, right? Who creates. People think culture, it's natural. Culture is made by people.
Yeah.
When we say men should cry and cry out loud and their tears to flow, we're teaching a new generation of young black men to be vulnerable. We're creating a culture.
Redefining.
Do you hear what I'm saying? That's what I'm prepared to do. Sure. When we say people should be able to reach out for help from their support systems and structure, we're saying men should not say, Indoda Ikali, Indoda Ikali. That song is nice, but I think it has to be questioned, right?
Sure.
It's not just about the beat. So I'm going to even help singers with their words, because you can't just be all over the place. If we are serious about bringing change, we must intervene. If we have to write songs to these singers, we must do that. I'm going to even back them up, because I might not be the best in being a lead singer, but I will sing behind the scene. And we must help them write songs that will heal the hearts, the minds, and the souls of Africans in Africa and the diaspora.
Yes.
All over the world. So that's the dream. And we are dreaming to not, when we come from rural areas, you only imagine yourself where you are and the areas around you. Me, I want to bring the change in the whole world.
Sure.
I want to tell stories which have never been told before.
Yeah.
Stories that will change the course of history.
Yeah.
Stories that include both qualitative aspects and quantitative aspects of the narrative.
Sure.
I am yet to have engaged, at least in my view, a people who have envisioned change and quantified it and even spoke about it in terms of its story, the numbers and the stories around it. And I'm part of a generation that is doing that.
Yeah.
And I think we have to imagine it. We have to see it, even if we can't touch it.
Yeah.
Do you hear what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's next for me. There are endless possibilities, but I'm excited that I'm here.
Sure.
To be here at the moment, right? And a lot of people are saying, hello, let's have conversations. It's still early to talk about certain things, right?
Okay.
We can't prematurely. Yes. Other people are unsure of where they stand, because of what has happened with but God has restored us. And, there is audience when you fall.
Yes.
There will be audience when we rise.
When you rise again.
So he's an amazing God.
A very good place to end this conversation. I know you and I can talk forever. There's so many things we can talk about. And there are so many commonalities even in our stories.
No, but I
and
think
our
I have to say
interests.
this. I love you, my brother.
I love you too, man.
And
I love
thank
you
you for seeing me as human who deserves also a platform in your space, right? I hope I did justice. I'm still learning, right? I've learned from you. I continue to learn from you every day, and I hope whoever gets to hear, see, and or watch or learn from this, take something, even if it's just say I'm not giving up on myself, or I want to try again, or I'm going to ask help from someone, like whatever it is, right? I hope two people do this and comment, if there's a comment section, to say thank you for sharing.
Sure.
I think you and I should sleep well at night with peace, say we have done something. We may not change the whole world, right? But if we change
Just one person.
I think we have done well. And my view and thinking is that the joy was, still is, and will forever remain in the journey of our being and becoming.
Thank you very much, my leader.
having me.
If people want to engage with you on the socials, how do they get to you?
Yes, no, I'm visible. I'm visible. I'm there. They can search Mafule Moswane, Mafule Moswane on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on YouTube. I'm everywhere and anywhere like the Holy Spirit. And my dream is to be on TikTok. I'm still learning how it works.
I'm going to put this one on TikTok. No, thank you very much, my leader. It has been a very great conversation. I really appreciate your coming here and spending time with me. Thank you so much.
It's been an absolute privilege and complete pleasure and joy. Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Inspiwords podcast. If there is anything that stood out for you or anything that really inspired you, I would love to hear from you. Please reach out to me on the socials at IamDaba and let me know your feedback. Until next time, give your dreams a chance.